What's up, trade crew? Welcome back to HVAC R&D, hosted by Rhydon. I'm thrilled to have a discussion with tonight's guest, and thanks to a conversation during a Labor Day weekend pig picking, leading to an invite to jump on the show, it's going to be a fun night. So let's get it going. Yeah, come on. This episode of HVAC R&D is brought to you by Bosch Home Comfort, Global The Source, and Cajun Joe's Bayou Spice. As the newest segment sponsor of the show, there's lots of content to come your way from Bosch Home Comfort, featuring their IDS Light inverter ducted split systems and gas furnaces, Climate 5000 mini splits, and the excellent dealer program package available to Bosch Home Comfort pros. Make sure to check out the link in the HVAC R&D vendor hub to learn more about HVAC's best bang for your buck in the market. Information on Global The Source can also be found in the vendor hub, and if you're looking for training on any and all of their products, from their industry-changing AMRAD Turbo series of capacitors to their universal hard start kits and hung right mounting systems, you can click the link in vendor hub and request training from your local or regional sales representative at any time. And are you looking for a Cajun seasoning that hits the spot every time? Well, then turn up the heat in your kitchen with Cajun Joe's Bayou Spice, the original Cajun blend that brings the bold flavors of the Bayou straight to your table. Whether you're grilling, sauteing, low country boiling, or seasoning your favorite dish, Cajun Joe's adds the perfect kick. Available now in the podcast swag shop. Just visit hvacrnd.com and grab your jar today. The show is also looking for the next HVAC R&D Powered by sponsor. If you're interested, please reach out via the contact link on hvacrnd.com, or you can drop me a line at hvacrnd@gmail.com and I will send you the 2024 press kit. I'm also grateful to continue to be part of the 2024 AHR Expo Workforce Development Team that has been working with Chicago's Prosser Career Academy and High School, a local high school with a dedicated HVAC program, helping to bring the next group of tradespeople to the industry. Huge continued thank you to Bosch Home Comfort, Insight Partners, and the Moore Sales Corporation. I could not be happier to have such dedicated partners on board for the rest of this project. And if you're interested in helping the school with R&D and the rest of the team, please reach out to me and we can see what else we can do to get you involved. If it's your first time listening to the show, I welcome you. Thank you for taking the time to give R&D a shot. I am based in North Carolina, and the show is focused on research and development within the trades. The main objective is the pursuit of building a better, more knowledgeable community of HVAC professionals and fellow tradespeople by learning from the past and embracing new advances in the industry to help us all be better for the future. If you're not following the show online, you can find me on Instagram and TikTok at hvac.rnd. You can also find me as the HVAC R&D podcast on LinkedIn, Tradehounds, and Facebook. If you're not listening to each week's shows and you've found us on Apple Music, iHeartRadio, Pandora, Spotify, or one of any other platforms, please follow the show, like and rate an episode, leave me a review, share me with your trade crew. If you want to work with me, you know how to do that. And make sure to visit the website and the swag shop and join the mailing list at the bottom of the page. So tonight, I've got a great friend on the show. I'm excited to welcome my friend and colleague, Sam Braddock. Sam is an account executive for Insight Partners, where he focuses on HVAC applied sales. He's got an impressive background in the industry, and we've had the pleasure of working together on several projects, which we'll discuss some of later. He and his wife recently arrived in the Charlotte area via a move from California to North Carolina, and he's not only a dedicated professional, but also a huge Atlanta Falcons fan. Not sure how that happened. DIY enthusiast and tech lover, get ready for an engaging after-hour style conversation where we'll dive into everything from HVAC to his strange love of the Falcons, and maybe even get some fantasy football hints as he prepares for his upcoming NFL fantasy draft. So trade crew, let's welcome Sam to the show.
Thank you, Rhydon. Happy to be here, man. This is exciting.
I'm glad.
Never done a podcast, so you might be in for a surprise here.
No, I think it'll be just fine. So now that you've listened to a few episodes, you know how this show ends. So we're both gonna, or not ends, but well, it may end. Who knows?
Maybe early.
But we know how this show begins. So I know we're both gonna have a drink tonight. So what's your beverage of choice? And, have you got a go-to for this kind of after-hour conversation, or have you got something special?
The beverage of choice for today's podcast, it seemed to make sense to go with the California company that has recently expanded into North Carolina. So I went with a Sierra Nevada Hazy Little Thing. And I've always loved their little tagline they print at the top of the can. Family owned, operated, and argued over. That just makes too much sense.
No, I agree with that.
But a go-to drink, I like bourbon, but I'm a big sucker for a Canadian whiskey with some ginger ale. So a little Crown and ginger ale is more of a go-to. But
so in the past, the Crown and Ginger is normally referred to on the show as a Belmont Special.
Okay, where'd that come about?
So I had a buddy that was from Belmont, North Carolina, and that was one of the drinks that he and one of his contractors always drank, and that's kind of just what we nicknamed it.
It's solid. So, it's a 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. type of drink.
I will agree with that.
It doesn't matter if it's raining outside, it's super hot. Crown and Ginger is always going to hit.
That's true. Well, I did not bring bourbon to the show. I brought a brewski as well, so this week I'm bringing an Outlaw back. It's been in the rotation lately. It's a good, smooth drinking beer. It's newer to the market, but it's nice. I know I gave one to your wife this weekend.
You did.
So I'm curious what she thought.
I will have to see. At that point, I think we were just ready to keep drinking what we had our paws on. So
I feel you on that. So let's talk a bit about background. So, we mentioned briefly in the intro, California to North Carolina, but what brought you to move to North Carolina from literally the other side of the country, so coast to coast? What kind of brought that on, and kind of how has that transition been?
It's been good. At first, a little scary. All my immediate family, who I've always been really close to, is still back home in California. Same with my wife's family. Wasn't really job related. Kind of moved from being an account executive to being an account executive with a company that sells a lot of the same lines that I had previously worked with and sold. So wasn't really job or wanting to escape family. We were close with family. It came down to wanting our own family and not wanting to raise that family in an apartment, which is kind of all we could afford in Orange County, California, where the median home price hit, I think, $1.1 million at some point. And so we kind of saw the writing on the walls. If we wanted a home and a family to raise, might be better to do elsewhere.
No, I can completely understand that.
Driving factor there.
I know that the median house price here just continues to go up and up and up. I'm sure you got in. Of course, you came about a year and a half, a little more than that?
Yeah, just hit 2 years in June. So a couple months past 2 years. But we're happy, man. I mean, it's all relative. We came out here, and some of the first things we heard locals saying when we met them was, "Yeah, the house prices out here are just getting crazy." It's like, oh yeah, but it's all just relative. So.
Yep.
We feel like we bought at a good time. Interest rate was not good, but it hasn't dipped down from what we got it at when we got it. So it's kind of feels like good timing, or as good as timing as we were going to get.
Yep, our interest rate, because Chris and I just, what is today? So we're 2 weeks past a week in the house, like officially moving in. We had closed August 14th of last year. So yeah, our interest rate's not the greatest either. I'm ready for that to turn down a little bit at some point for the old refinance. That'd be nice.
Yeah, it would be nice. I'll hold my breath with you.
Yeah, you and I both. So, products didn't really change. Geography changes some. You're not really in a coastal area as much as you were anymore. How is it? But also, same kind of clients, but different backgrounds. So, if you had any kind of differences in client interactions, based on, southern region versus out west region, kind of how you learn to interact with people.
I do think that the West Coast and maybe Southern California specifically, I don't know, seemed a little bit more fast-paced with expectations from clients and things. I think that was kind of dramatized in my head just because week one I had an experience where I was out to lunch and took the call and somebody goes, "Oh, no, I'm so sorry to interrupt your lunch. I'm really sorry about that. You can just get it to me when you can." And that wasn't a typical response. I mean, not to say we had terrible people that were demanding all the time, but that was kind of like, "No, it's fine. I'll get back to the office. I'll get it back to you." And no rush at all. Sorry to interrupt your lunch. It kind of threw me off guard. But that was just one specific experience. I think it's pretty much similar in terms of, I guess client interactions are pretty similar. I will say there are some differences when it comes to the market, just in terms of I had a lot of units selected in California with no heat. You come over here, Every unit's got heat, which obviously makes sense, but that was just kind of like why didn't I think that would be such a big difference? But then some of the things that we used to deal with in California aren't things we deal with here in terms of seismic regulations with OSHPD in California. So I don't know. There's definitely little differences. You pick up on them quick and go, okay, I don't have to worry about that anymore. Or all of a sudden I got to pay much more attention to this going forward.
Well, and I think, you move from California to North Carolina in terms of a state that is, heavy hitting on a mechanical code. California is probably the toughest in the country. North Carolina is not far behind it. So there's a lot of different things in our mechanical code that I think in some ways probably mirror where you were before, and other than obviously we're not having seismic activity that we're having to worry about here and other certain aspects. But did you ever have to deal with any kind of, since if you were doing something on the coast, did you have to do with any kind of like coastal stuff similar to like you would see, hurricane protection down in Miami or on the Atlantic coast? Did you ever have to do like typhoon protection or anything like that?
Nothing with that outside of just like regular OSHPD for seismic stuff. Equipment I had to be able to run after a seismic event. So that was mainly hospitals or government buildings and others that required it. I will say, our office that I used to work at was maybe 25 to 30 minutes away from, coastal lines. So we did have a lot of projects in beach cities that required coil coatings, electro-EFIN or Parasite coatings, whatever it was to get to a certain salt spray hour rating.
Gotcha.
Every once in a while still run into specs with coil coating still called out here, especially if the job is closer to the North Carolina shorelines. But nothing with outside of OSHPD and some coil coatings, nothing too different.
So what would you say has been really your biggest challenge, but also kind of been the most rewarding aspect of really starting fresh in a new location?
Well, starting fresh was awesome. Just because at my previous rep firm, I was there, 7 or so years, where a lot of that time was spent as an inside sales guy. And then, moved to an outside sales guy, you kind of get here, make something of these accounts that are left over, and so you're kind of focused, and you've dealt with helping other outside guys throughout your last few years, with their accounts. You got to know those guys. They're buying a lot, and then you get an account list, and you're like, all right, go make something of it. When I transitioned, it was nice to have that fresh start of, I wasn't the guy viewed as the insider that got moved up to outside sales. I was coming in to take that position from the start, and all new clients, all new customers and vendors, and just getting to create a new that fresh start was just very kind of rewarding in itself. Getting to go make those relationships from scratch with all new people. You don't even know who the major players in town are. Go learn it, go figure it out, and have fun.
I think I can mirror that a lot. So when I was in Greenville, South Carolina for a couple of years with a different distributor before I first moved to North Carolina. So I was from North Carolina, but I wasn't from the Charlotte metro area at all. I grew up in the mountains, so I had no idea what I was stepping into moving to the Charlotte market. So I kind of experienced the same thing going freshly outside in this market. I really got to kind of just go and figure it out, which was nice, because you don't have any kind of preconceived, notions about, this account or that account. You'll get some of that guidance, or, someone that's had a bad experience is like, oh no, I wouldn't waste my time with them. It's like, well, maybe you didn't need to waste your time with them, but I'm not you.
Correct.
So you have some of that too. And it's nice to be able to kind of go and start really just, kind of, I guess what's the right word? Planting your own seeds, I guess I would say.
Yeah.
I'd say that's kind of the funnest part about a move like that.
Now, I do wish this. I wish I would have gotten a new phone number. I wanted to keep the old phone number, so that all my old buddies had it, and you're moving across West Coast to East Coast, literally, and
yep.
That's a long ways, and you want to be able to stay connected with as many people that had an impact on your life as possible. So you want to keep your old number, but Charlotte is a 704 area code, and Fullerton, California, where I was born and raised, is a 714. And so they look similar, which may be a good thing, I guess, but somebody sees a 714, they have no idea what that means. And I had to kind of urge people, hey, will you save me in your contacts so you don't block my call again? Thinking it's spam likely. So.
Well, and I got some of that too. So, I was an 828 area code when I was in Greenville, and then, I've kept it being in Charlotte too, but it's a Western North Carolina code now. Now, when I was little, 704 was Charlotte all the way to the mountains, because there weren't enough people. But as it's grown over the years, obviously they keep breaking it up, but 828 has seemed to work so far. I would hate to attempt to try to change that phone at this point. It's been way too many years of giving it to too many people around here.
Yeah, and at least it ends with NC when it's on that caller ID.
That's true.
They see CA and they freak.
So, talking about North Carolina, we'll go personal for a few minutes. We kind of dug into work even quicker than I thought we would. But that also kind of lends into what you and I do on a daily basis. Is our job is to talk to people about work, so it kind of happens.
It does.
One of the most fascinating facts about you was that I'm still trying to sort out how you became a Falcons fan in Orange County, California.
Yeah. Well, at the time, the Los Angeles Chargers were the San Diego Chargers, which would have made them the closest proximity, only like an hour and a half drive away. But I don't know, they weren't in my hometown. None of my family liked the Chargers, so that just didn't seem like a fit. Mom's side of the family from Seattle, so big Seahawks fans. Dad's side from Wisconsin, big Green Bay fans. Have plenty of pictures of me running around in a Brett Favre jersey. But that's when I didn't even watch football. I was just told to wear this. And by the time I really started caring about football and actually getting excited to watch it, it's right about the time Mike Vick is drafted by the Falcons and starts kind of exploding onto the scene as And as somebody that was just getting into it, and I mean, had always watched it with my dad, and just kind of watching how the game, I guess, is supposed to look in that time. Having this guy with a cannon of an arm and just running all around the field, making defenders kind of look like they're wearing cement blocks for shoes, just excited me. And I was like, yeah, why would I root for any of these other teams? Like, just because my family does, like, that's my team. So Mike Vick pulled me in. The dog stuff was obviously a heartbreaker for a kid that always had dogs in his family and still loves them to this day. But that's what pulled me in. And then, every other thing that just kind of, every other player they would get, they got Tony Gonzalez from the Chiefs, and he had a great career with the Falcons. It's his second career with us. Roddy White was one of my favorite receivers, and just loved watching the Falcons, man. From the time I can kind of remember being 10 or 11 years old, where Mike Vick was the guy. I've been to many games. I've spent probably way too much money on the team to travel from California to, everybody has that MLB checklist they're going for to watch a baseball game in every stadium. My goal is, I don't want to check off a stadium unless I saw the Falcons play in them, but I'd like to go see the Falcons play in every city. This seems like they're upgrading stadiums as often as they can get the tax dollars to do so.
No joke.
So I might miss out on some of the marquee stadiums if they get upgraded, but as long as I can check off a game against every team, in every away stadium, whatever stadium is current at that time, I'll be happy.
I will say this is into sports venues in general. At the rate that they get updated or renamed,
yeah, what are they doing?
I feel like it's lost so much of the mystique of like the classic names and classic stadiums.
Yeah, I'll never forget like taking my girlfriend at the time, now wife, to the Georgia Dome, flying from California. Let's go check out the Georgia Dome, see what that's all about. It was our first time there, and then a year later they announced plans to change it, and we went and saw one more Georgia Dome game just that last season that it existed before they blew it up. And it always was just crazy to me from the outside looking in, saying, what was wrong with that stadium? Like, we had the time of our lives going there. It was, there's nothing inherently wrong with that stadium. Obviously, the new Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta is incredible. Been there many times already, and went there last year actually for the opener. Kind of sad that I'm not going this Sunday. So we do have a home opener on week 1. But went there last year because it was Bijan Robinson's rookie game, and I didn't want to look back with regret that I missed that. He scored his first touchdown of his NFL career, and I said that was worth the 4-hour drive, the ticket price, the Airbnb for afterwards. That was worth every dollar. So, but going back to the stadiums, 9 times out of 10, I don't see a need. Some of those stadiums are pretty old and can use it, but.
Well, and that's one, maybe we don't, since we haven't been to them, we don't see the wear and tear or the maintenance needs that it would need to actually repair it to move on. But some days it just seems like, can we not just fix this and keep the nostalgia for a little while?
And you can do upgrades. Like, why change the building structure if there's nothing wrong?
Yeah. Well, and what's funny is I grew up, my dad wasn't a big sports person. He was from New Orleans originally, so technically he's a Saints fan.
Yeah,
but
so as soon as you said New Orleans, I kind of
kind
of got this like rage in my heart, but keep going.
I know, it's okay. So, but growing up where I did in the mountains, we had 3 TV channels, so I wasn't watching. If I saw a Sunday football game, it was whatever actually was just on TV. There was no sitting around to watch this. Where we were up on the mountains, there was no getting cable. So it just kind of was what it was. I grew up a Raiders fan.
Okay.
Which is even stranger, but I was a big, I love Tim Brown. I was a, Rocket Ishmael fan. Marcus Allen was a legend.
Marcus Allen was a legend.
So, that was That was kind of my team. I was the one guy that was a Raiders fan. Most all of my best friends were either Redskins or Cowboys fans because those were the two games you could see most of the time on on Sundays where we were. There was a few Packers fans. I had a buddy that was a massive Brett Favre fan growing up. And then, the Panthers came around in 95. So I was, 9? But, and, most people kind of transitioned to Falcons, or not Falcons fans, but, that's what you prefer. But to Panthers fans. But, again, it was one of those, I don't really know.
Yeah.
Football was just never really my main sport. I was always a baseball guy in most cases. I was a huge Red Sox fan and a Braves fan. And I love going to baseball games.
I do love going. There is something about going.
No, I love going to baseball games. I went to more Asheville tourist games as a kid than I can count, which I definitely am grateful to my dad for that. And even, once I was in high school, some buddies of mine, we would go, once we could drive, we'd go a couple of times a month to games when we could. Just because it was just cool to go and do. Of course, it was an hour drive, but hell, we had nothing better to do where we were. But, when you grow up in the middle of nowhere, you have to go an hour to do anything different besides drive down Main Street and then turn around and drive back down it.
And we'll be back in 30 minutes to do it again.
Not even that. More like 30 seconds. 4 stoplight town. So, with your NFL fandom, I know you've got a fantasy draft tonight.
I do. Last one.
Last one. So now that you're a few drafts in, since this will definitely happen, this will go out after you've done your draft. Any good hints for anybody that's working on a draft maybe this weekend when they listen to this thing?
Well, hopefully they're not drafting this weekend because tomorrow is the kickoff of week 1. I've definitely seen drafts that get pulled together and they just don't count week 1. And they couldn't get it done, so they start the season at week 2. Nothing wrong with that, but season starts tomorrow. So today is kind of the last day. I don't think I'm going to be able to divulge any secrets, but
it's true.
There's a lot of guys at receiver this year, so it is very tempting to take a Tyreek Hill, CeeDee Lamb very early on, Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, and there's been a trend to go towards the stud receivers more so lately after a good decade of running backs being kind of the sought-after ones early on. This is a year where I'm kind of back on that old school train of thought. I want to be trying to get one of those 3 running backs with Christian McCaffrey, Breece Hall, and Bijan Robinson. And then you'll have plenty of room to acquire some wide receiver talent all throughout the rest of the draft. There are so many receivers nowadays, probably because they're the second highest paid position. So you might have safeties in college going, let me just put me on that side of the ball real quick. Let me see if I can do it.
Well, and talking about having room down the line to try to fix your draft. So last year when we had our company one, which obviously I guess we're not having one this year. But last year I had to set mine for auto draft because of the time the draft was. And I got absolutely butchered by the old auto draft.
Yeah, you did.
I had 2 quarterbacks and that was about it.
Yeah, I think I don't know if you had done any like pre-draft rankings or like maybe you there's a function you can go in there and queue the players, and that way if you auto draft and that guy's available at the top of your queue, that's who you'll take. I don't know if you did any of that or
I did some of that, but
and
from the looks
probably
of it,
didn't do anything
it did not
wrong.
set up right. It didn't set itself up.
You probably
right.
didn't do anything wrong. It's just the software running those auto drafts is like, oh, this guy queued this guy, and he doesn't look at, well, he already has a quarterback that he spent a high draft. He's not thinking like a fantasy player. So, this guy was queued. He's available. He's the best bet for this guy. So, yeah, I remember texting you, I think, after the draft, like, hey, man, you have like 3 quarterbacks and 2 kickers. You might want
Yeah, it
make
was a
some
little rough.
moves before the first Sunday.
I was like, sweet, I've got Patrick Mahomes and Jalen Hurts. I've got the
That's
number one
awesome.
MVP
Yeah.
quarterback, but I can't play them both at the same time. And oh wait, they also have the same bye week. So I was totally screwed no matter what I did.
That's when you got to hit just the trade market. You come in, you're like, hey man, I'll get you a sick deal on some flex duct if you can just
That's it.
if you can just take the second quarterback off my hands and maybe give me a starting receiver.
So, my NFL draft failings aside, let's talk a little bit about applied sales and working together. So Sam and I work together, but we work in different kind of sides of the company. So Sam is applied sales on the commercial manufacturer's rep side. I work as a territory sales manager on the parts and aftermarket, as well as distribution for some residential and light commercial. So it's two different sides of the business, but we're starting to figure out how those two work together. I think if you looked at it from my perspective of how I think parts distribution can work with account execs the best is it's really you guys are the ones getting stuff into the market a lot of times with the majority of commercial applications. But then once it's in the market, there's got to be this other part of the business that one helps maintain what's there, but also is there to help kind of, as those systems start to age, we're the ones that are there helping push the retrofit to go back with the same thing. So as you guys are getting it in the market, we're helping maintain the business share in the market for the same company. It's kind of how I think it makes sense. Yeah, and there's also things that
we're not equally trained up on what that looks like, how we can help each other. It's pretty quick recipe for disaster.
Yep, and there's a lot of things, when you guys go to market, there's certain things that you build into and you quote on jobs, but now that you have this other part of the business, there's a lot of other things we can also quote on some of these plans from time to time. It's just there's not always a great focus on us working together for some of those things, because a lot of times it ends up being muddy waters over, well, it's this guy's customer or it's that guy's customer. And I get that to a point. So I think collaboration moving forward, something I talk about on the show a lot, is we have to be more focused on collaboration than competition.
Yeah. And I'm glad, at least with you and I, it hasn't even felt like I need to be more focused. It's kind of like I know where you're going to help me and you know where I'm going to help you.
And that all comes down to communication as well, and building a relationship with your work colleagues. So, I've talked a lot of times about what I do on a day-to-day basis on this show as a territory manager, but there's not a lot of people that know kind of how your day-to-day would work. So as an account executive at Insight, what does your day-to-day look like, and kind of what excites you the most about working on the applied sales side of the industry?
Well, I'm sure if you mentioned that you brought it up about your day-to-day quite a bit.
Sam, I just accidentally muted you. What's up, trade crew? Are you tired of playing microfarad hide and seek with your service truck inventory? I think it's time that you tested out the Turbo 200 family from Amrad Manufacturing and Global The Source, where efficiency meets durability and finding the right capacitor is never a game of chance. With the Turbo family of universal capacitors, you're not just getting any regular capacitor. No. You're getting the HVAC industry's version of a superhero cape. Reliable, efficient, ready to save the day, these ruggedly tested, made in the USA capacitors are prepared for whatever you run into during your service calls. These truly unique and industry-changing universal capacitors allow you to replace over 200 individual sizes with just their 4 models: the Turbo 200, Turbo 200X, Turbo Mini, and Turbo Mini Oval. And did I mention they have a 5-year warranty? Seriously, what are you waiting for? Do the math and upgrade your truck stock setup today, because the Turbo family has got you covered. Visit the HVAC R&D Vendor Hub and click on the Global The Source link to request training from a local account executive in your market. Easy peasy. Amrad Manufacturing, where performance meets perfection. Because in the world of HVAC, good enough isn't in our vocabulary. It's turbo or nothing. And now, back to the show.
You hear me?
My bad. Sorry,
You're good.
everybody.
You're good. But yeah, you had brought up, that you've talked about on the show, and I'm sure when you have brought it up, you've mentioned how much your day-to-day changes from, maybe it's a delivery day and you just got to get stuff out to customers to help serve their projects as quickly as possible.
Yep, constantly.
Or maybe it's just a completely different day. And so I would say that's kind of what your second part of the question is what excites you. And I would say that's what excites me, is that it's not the same mundane task. I've gotten pretty lucky that most of my jobs in my career, like even before my last rep firm in California, so I've kind of been a rep for about the last 10 years. Prior to that, I was a cooling tower. I worked for a cooling tower contractor, so we did a lot of cooling tower rebuilds and refurbishments, similar to the Recon division at Insight Partners. But that was different every day. Some days I was changing out fill medias. Some days I was doing just a general maintenance cleaning. Some days we were removing a gearbox and putting it back on and getting it realigned. It changed every day. So I've been fortunate with that, because I think just the human being I am, I think I would kind of require that to not get caught in some kind of mundane trap. But day to day could, like yours, could vary quite differently, to where some days I got to kind of catch up on working with engineers to get selections for a new design project they're working on, and getting submittals done on projects that contractors have been awarded, that we've bid them and they want to purchase our equipment and need to get submittals. So some days just can easily turn into a computer day of making sure that I have all my ducks in a row and I'm getting everything that my customers need into their inbox. But then just as easily, my days could be going out and doing lunch and learns for engineers, showing them about new technology or innovation and diving deep on product specifics that they wanted to hear about. Or it can be joining a contractor to go look at a chiller replacement job and measuring the space, making sure we have the room, and figuring out the performance of the existing chillers and what we're going to do to replace these in an efficient manner and a cost-effective manner. So kind of what I love about the account executive role is plenty of days on the computer, plenty of days out in the field, plenty of days in my customers' offices trying to build relationships and educate them.
No, and I think I completely agree with that. I think most all of us as salespeople, at some point, we don't know what to do if we're attached to a desk all the time. We all understand that it's going to happen. We're going to have that sit at the desk and get it figured out part of the job, but we're not constantly just, we're going to the office from 9 to 5 today, and that's how it's going to be.
Have you ever tried that, going back through all your jobs? Have you ever had that job where you're just in front of a computer all day, no matter what? I have no problem catching up on stuff, making sure all my customers have what they need. That means 10, 11 hours in front of a computer for the day, I'm good with that. But have you ever had that job where it's, Monday through Friday, that's what you're going to be doing, sitting at the computer?
I've semi had that as inside sales and, being an assistant branch manager in distribution at times when I first was kind of in my career the first couple of years. But moving to sales, it kind of felt like I found where I was supposed to be in this industry in one way or another. I grew up in a family business, doing residential, light commercial, a little bit of refrigeration, but not a lot. Most of it was residential, light commercial. But I liked having something different to do most days. There's days where you go to the same house multiple days in a row, but you're not doing the exact same thing in most cases every single day. You're doing something different. Even if it's new construction, you're still doing something different. And most of the new construction experience I had growing up doing those sort of things and doing rough-ins it was still all custom home, so I wasn't in that mundane track builder. Today we're doing plan A, tomorrow we're doing plan B, the next week we're doing plan C, and then we start over with plan A. Because, the houses can't look the same next to each other, but they can be 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3 over and over and over. Yeah.
Hey, is that the band? Is that the band? Is that how they got their name?
That's not a bad thought. I mean, I could see that. But no, I appreciated having the difference moving from this part or that part to different sides of the industry. So a lot of what you do comes down to helping customers select the right product, especially when you're dealing one-on-one with engineers, but also when you're dealing with contractors, because there's a lot of times where you may have a set of plans, but it's 18 months old. There's things that need to change, or you need to have a discussion with the contractor for them to have a discussion with an engineer. So, how do you balance needs of client versus capabilities of equipment? And do you have kind of a specific approach, when you're looking to ensure the best fit?
Yeah, I hate to give this answer because I don't want it to paint a bad picture of my ability, but my answer would be my specific approach is to listen. I'm 31 years old, and even though the last 11 or 12 or so years have been spent between cooling tower contractor, inside sales, application engineer, outside sales, I've been in HVAC a while, but when I look at the consulting engineers I work with, when I look at the mechanical contractors I work with, a lot of them have a lot more experience than me. So I think my answer boils down to I listen. I do know, what the equipment that we represent is capable of and where it maybe has strengths or potentially weaknesses. So I do offer input, but my strategy is to listen and then figure out, okay, we couldn't do it with this, but why wouldn't we just do a 6-row coil and get to a smaller box size so that we can fit in that space that you're looking for? I'm listening to their needs first and foremost, and then I'm kind of then using the experience I have. I want their experience to kind of lead the conversation, and maybe one day that role is reversed where I'm kind of the experienced guy in the room. But right now I know that I'm not an expert in HVAC design. I'm an expert in caring, and I'm an expert in resourcefulness, whether that's finding the information needed or finding somebody that I am positive can help me provide that information. So right now I lean on the people that have been doing it and doing it successfully, and then where I can help, I now am kind of seeing the full picture and know where I can potentially step in and talk about how our equipment fits and what changes we might want to make to kind of achieve the goal at a lower cost, or achieve the goal in something that'll work.
No, and I think that's probably one of the most, I would say, overlooked best traits of salespeople is the ability for us to listen. A lot of times or salespeople in general will go into a situation feeling like they have to try to hold the conversation, or they have to try to lead the room, but that's not always the case, especially when you're developing and building new relationships with engineers or with contractors that you've not worked with before. You can't really dictate to them, their own experience. So I completely agree with where you're taking that, and you kind of just have to take that back seat and allow them to open up and give you the information that you need. And as you learn to listen, you get better at figuring out what questions to ask too, because certain guys you have to ask questions that you don't have to ask others, because they're going to tell you more about this, and this one's going to tell you more about that. So you also start to learn and understand your customer so much better by being able to take that listen first approach to anything that you're dealing with them.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And I don't know, I kind of realized, like, I'm not gonna sit here and try to interject on what I think I know, even though I go through trainings, I go through, listening to others' experiences, within my colleagues' sales jobs, and kind of hearing what happened and what they learned from it. I have plenty to offer, but I'm in terms of strategy, or kind of like what you said, keeping that client happy, and what's your approach. My approach is to definitely listen first, and I've had to kind of remind myself that I'm the one trying to help them. How am I going to help them if I'm not hearing all of their concern, all of their pain points, or what they're after? So,
well, and that kind of comes down to also, as we talk about stuff you and I've worked on together, we've had a project recently that kind of stands out because one, you initially had the relationship with the engineer. I had developed some of the relationship with the customer, because this customer that's doing, that's paying the engineer for the plans also is I'd say they're a large county body. So they have their own maintenance staff and service guys that have input into what they're working on.
They could be a major driving force in the decision, more so than any other owner that you would work with.
Correct. So these guys, I had done some trainings with some of their service people for some change outs and some different things that we were doing with the county. And then this set of plans comes up for what they're working on. And they had some issues in the past with some other equipment they've worked with. And, we had a discussion about with the county pushing for energy efficiency and some of the things they were going towards. You already had Aon stuff as basis of design that you were working with. But as we started looking to what they were doing with split systems and mini splits, half the systems are running on 3-phase, half the systems are running on single phase. So they're running multiple units of power into the exact same block of equipment. So we said, what if we look at this a little bit different and we give you an inverter product that will help you with energy efficiency, but also you can maintain that energy efficiency and just make it to where you have single phase power through this entire block of 13 systems. So you don't have, I think it was 7 that were running on 3-phase and 6 that are running on single phase, and they're all mixed matched in between each other. That just seemed like a lot of additional work. So we were able to, as a collaboration between account execs and then this other aftermarket part of the business that had already had a different relationship, all of that working together allowed us to take, a job where we had 2 pieces of equipment as basis of design to 15. So it was cool to be able to move, and everything moved to Bosch, which thank you Bosch for being a sponsor of the show, but also for having a product that we can use to help kind of build change and do different things, in the company that we're in.
Yeah, and it'd be one thing if Bosch wouldn't help alleviate their energy efficiency concerns, but they've just taken such strides in that department, and that's just one more tool that we can show. And I think it really comes down to developing trust. Like you said, I had a relationship with the engineer, and the engineer's pretty fond of what Aon can do for dehumidification style units, bringing in dedicated outside air. And then, Insight Partners had done some work with showing the end user kind of what control systems we had and how easily they would integrate into the Aon, the Bosch. So now we're delivering a high quality performing product with great efficiencies at the Aon and Bosch level. And we're integrating controls, and it just, it alleviates so much for the end user and the other parties that are involved to have trust in a whole package and what it can do for their building.
Well, and I think it also shows when it comes to the general contractors that end up bidding on the job, and then the mechanical contractors that are joining in the bids for the job, when they start seeing, they see a set of plans and they've got to call, 10 different distributors / manufacturers reps to be able to get all the different numbers for this one job. Being able to have, a complete full equipment controls solution through one provider, I think also makes some of their life easier as well, because they're not having to run around this many different places, and it's not quite so many balls to juggle at the same time either.
It certainly does alleviate that. I think a big part of it too, like I'm just trying to put myself in the shoes of I hate to say wealthy business owner, but if I'm looking at what I'm providing for my building and I'm spending my dollars, I wouldn't care if I had to go to multiple sources if that was the right choice. But the fact that we can alleviate only having to go to one source, but also establishing trust along the way. I mean, the project we're kind of referring to had, 3 or 4 different people from Insight truly involved in, and the right people, not just one guy trying to overextend and prove the benefits of 4 different items that he's not 100% trained up on, or working together to bring in the right resources for each kind of stage of the project or different division of the project, and figuring out how we can provide a total solution. So I think establishing that trust is kind of the key factor, and then just the fact that it's all from one vendor is kind of like, wow, and it's easy to work with you guys.
Well, and residential and commercial both are extremely competitive, and being able to do these sort of things kind of also forces you that you have to build these relationships to kind of continue moving that stuff on. So has there been, I would say, how do you really maintain the relationships with your clients and partners as you get into this major competitive landscape? How do you start moving it more towards service as opposed to price every single time?
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty honest with folks in terms of what you're going to get with me. I may not know the answer because I may not be the most intelligent person in terms of that specific type of thing you're talking about. But they know they're getting somebody that cares a lot and is resourceful and is going to go get them the answer. And there are plenty of types of things I'm very comfortable with, and would consider myself above average in terms of helping them solve application issues like cooling towers and VRF. I've just spent so much time with those. I feel very comfortable, but I have no problem letting my customers know what kind of team I have behind me, and just kind of establishing that trust. And then there's nothing wrong with celebrating successes. So I'm big on customer and I have a big job together. Let's go do something. Let's celebrate a job well done so that we look forward to the next one. I mean, there's a lot of things I do for customers. A lot of it's focused on training opportunities for their service group. I've seen enough business done over the last 7-8 years from different account executives to know that not everybody prioritizes reaching out to service departments and making sure each of their mechanical contractors that they work with are informed about every single training opportunity that we're providing them for free, whether it's a boiler troubleshooting class, an AON package unit, startup class. So I'm very big about spreading training opportunities. I'm very big about trying to get customers to the factory to see how product is manufactured. But mostly what I like about factory trips is just showing the customer, like, look, this place is providing jobs for thousands of people. They're cranking out equipment efficiently and with care, and just look at some of the technology in this facility. So kind of showing them what it means to be working with me. I have access to this product. They're all trying to support us, and we're all trying to support you together.
Well, and I think that's another part where us having the parts aftermarket side also plays into your goal as informing and educating service people.
Yeah.
Because when you're doing those trainings and you're teaching them on the product that you're installing with them as a new product, but also knowing where they go for the support of those things, that's the beauty of us having parts and aftermarket stuff, is where those guys can also maintain a relationship through the same company to back them up for the stuff down the line. And that's where, being able to jointly call on service providers and things like that really kind of set us apart too, I think.
Yeah, and even if we're not jointly calling, I can tell you I feel a lot more confident selling an equipment project, knowing that, down the line, if there's the inherent things that pop up that they need help sourcing parts on, that Insight's all about it, and have spent a lot of resources and time growing the parts offering that we have and aftermarket items that we have. been nice teaming up with you when we can. You can see a lot more in our future.
No, and I agree with that. And as you've continued to have success in an account exec role, what do you say is probably the most valuable lesson you've learned about HVAC sales that you wish you would have known earlier, besides listen first?
Honestly, probably to be myself more from the get-go. I think it was kind of made apparent to me at a couple different times. Why haven't I been just doing this? I think some of that stemmed from potentially not doing a typical route to get to an account executive position in terms of education. Didn't have the 4-year degree coming out of a big engineering style college. Kind of went straight into the labor force after high school. Luckily, the rep firm in California I worked for was very generous and got me through a local program, and got my associates in air conditioning and heating, which was actually probably more beneficial than some of the engineering schools from what I've heard.
I can
just
agree
because
with that.
we were seriously sitting there with barred units, wiring up barred heat pumps and charging systems, recovering, and just kind of like learning the things that now I talk to my customers all the time about what they're out there doing in the field. And just kind of, and we had some really good teachers I went to Cypress College in California, and we had some really good teachers for the HVAC program. But still not having that kind of 4-year background, if you will. I've always kind of felt like maybe an imposter at times. Do I really, just because it does seem like that's the status quo for somebody in my position. So I would say,
I don't think you can judge yourself for that, though.
maybe not, but the question was kind of, I've had some success. What did I wish I knew earlier? It was just to be yourself, because I spent way too much time worried about that. Worried about how intelligent all the people around me were, and some of the accolades they had on an educational level. And then I remember some of the breaking points of just like, wow, I do belong here, and this is more of a people business than just technical knowledge. Even though I've picked up so much, I've had the blessing of getting so much training over the last 10 years with different manufacturers coming into our offices and things like that, and then just experience with working through jobs with customers. But I remember at the time, my last company, I had done a couple Christmas party rap songs that were very kind of personal to the they were very personal to the company in terms of inside jokes, and they were riddled with funny lyrics that kind of hyped up the company, and it was just a great way to celebrate the end of the year. And I never thought they would blow up, but like I remember how much everybody enjoyed that. And then even with Aon offers a 6-month, it's like 1 week out of every month for 6 months. It's called the Masters of HVAC program, and I attended that, and it was such a great time because you're with the same group of 25 people or whatever, and you're going out after you train from like 8 to 5 or 8 to 4, and you're going out afterwards for dinner and maybe grabbing a couple drinks some of the nights, and you're just having a great time together. And 6 weeks seems like a lot every time you come home for the week, and you're like, wow, 3 weeks from now I'm going back out there. But then once you're out there with all these people, same routine, getting dinners every night and just starting to meet them, and then you really start to like these people that you're in this class with. And I was like, I used to do Christmas raps for my old company. I should probably do a little tribute rap, so that final day of a 6-week program, I do a rap for people I've only known for 6 weeks. And they filmed it, and they ended up posting it on their LinkedIn. It kind of went. I had all my ex-coworkers and customers I've been working with, throughout my career, reaching out to me saying they saw it, and
That's awesome.
It kind of made me realize like you do fit in this industry regardless of any of the other stuff. Like you're a person that tries really hard to make sure customers are happy, make sure you're getting them everything they need, learning along the way. Like I'm doing everything everybody else is doing, just with a slightly different history. And so, very long-winded answer to your question, but that's what I wish I would have known earlier on, is just be yourself. If it doesn't work for you while you're being yourself, then you can move on and know that you did what you should have done.
Well, and I think, being yourself obviously is a huge part of it. But, for your example, even though you didn't feel like your background was the right background for your job, in a lot of cases you have such a different background to where a lot of engineers have that 4-year degree, but they've never put their hands on a piece of equipment.
Yeah, potentially, and probably more likely than not.
It's super common. So I think, the fact that you had a slightly untraditional route to it, which in some ways I did. Not everybody grows up in HVAC and then becomes an HVAC sales guy either. At least not on this side of it. Most people just take over the family business and they're on that side. I chose, a little bit different route with it, because I really wanted to be the sales guy I didn't have.
Yeah.
So I completely understand, trying to figure out how to be yourself while thinking that you're going to be prejudged or something in the beginning as you're starting, a different career path. But for anybody, I completely second what you say. You've got to be yourself. And if you can't be yourself in your job day to day, no matter what it is, it doesn't make it very fun.
No. And that'll quickly be apparent.
Yeah, real quick. So we've hammered on some work a little bit. We'll sidebar to some tech talk and some hobbies, because I know those are some things that you like. So you've got a lot of different tech related hobbies: computers, smart homes, 3D printing. You've got a pretty sick computer setup from the video we were looking at before starting the show. What's your latest passion project with all of your different little hobbies that you're working on?
Oh, that's so tough. Oh man, that's tough. I mean, when I say like computers, it's mostly building computers. I love taking a use case, thinking about what that use case would require in terms of specs, and then figuring out a sort of budget-friendly way of building that PC, sourcing the individual parts and then putting it together. And haven't done it yet. No immediate plans, but that even sounds like if I ever really wanted to, a fun little side venture, just helping people, consult with them. What, are you a video editor? What are you doing on the computer that requires something more than a Best Buy, HP that you can buy, and figuring out how I can help them. Gaming is obviously a huge industry where people spend lots of money to make sure their computer can perform to their standard, because the later titles as of lately that come out, they're very demanding on graphics card and CPU performance, and so just trying to figure out what is somebody's goal with their PC, what kind of use case do they want to get out of it, and helping them figure out the cheapest way, but also a way that's going to give them the performance they're looking for. So I don't know, I could see me doing that one day in the future. Just that, I don't know if that would ever pay the bills fully, but just for fun. I do love smart home stuff. I'm always kind of tweaking things around the house and setting up automations, whether it's using presence sensors to know if I'm in a certain room, and depending on what time of day it was, I may want something to turn on or off, or just trying to always improve on. I mean, I can turn on my fireplace from anywhere in the world, or I can tell my little Amazon Dot thing to turn on my fireplace. So I try to take as much of that off. A lot of those smart home devices use a kind of a cloud-based service, and whatever service they use, and I try to kind of open up that sensor or that piece of hardware and flash it with a different software that I can I'm not a code writer by any means, so when I say code write something in to do something different, I really mean steal somebody else's code that's already worked really hard on it. But to take it offline, essentially, and so I have kind of a mini computer dedicated to running a private server in my house where any of the smart home devices I use are not sending information to some company that I don't know what they're doing with it or anything like that. So I try to combine smart home with the techie side of trying to flash it with my own software and make sure that it's my device that I am using and hosting myself.
Well, and I think that's also where you start to see all that smart home stuff even interacting into the HVAC industry.
It's
on our
crazy.
side. There's so much stuff
crazy.
now that's just all intertwined. I have an unhappy puppy dog.
I hear that.
Can you tell?
Yeah. I mean, I feel like you could go out and talk to 100 business owners. Maybe 5 would tell you, nah, I don't care. If your question was, do you want to be able to see your building kind of at a glance on your phone? What's going on with your mechanical systems and what's going on with
maybe I might. I don't know. What does that matter?
I don't know. I think I'm at least of the firm belief that a good majority of building owners are now at that point where they realize there's potential or potential to get that set up, and they realize that they do want that.
No, I agree with that. I think it's been a huge push that I've seen, really getting into the commercial market the last several years. And I started to see it some, before moving over here a couple of years ago. But the more I see of the broader commercial scope, the more I'm constantly seeing that quick-paced technology and innovation in terms of how controls can really change how people are looking at their system in the long run in terms of efficiency.
Yeah, it's awesome. I do kind of humble myself sometimes by strolling into the Insight Partners controls division, thinking I know a little bit of, a thing or two about how different devices can communicate and get a job done. And I will say the commercial side of things, it's a whole different racket, man, what they're able to build and what they're able to achieve with some of this stuff.
Now, you've also told me you do a little bit of dabbling in music production, which that's kind of my thing back in the day. I was a musician too. I never got into developing, any kind of digital music, but how does that, kind of help your creative side, being able to push it into music, kind of as another just avenue of release?
Yeah. It's a fairly recent endeavor. Probably May of 2023 was when I bought kind of a small MIDI keyboard, which is just something you can plug into your computer and kind of jam out on. And downloaded Ableton, which is what a big majority of the kind of professionals use. I won't admit that whether I paid for it or not, I don't know. I'll leave that to you to figure out. But found a way to get it onto my computer and just started messing around with it. And I wouldn't say house music is even the predominant genre of music I listen to, but I do truly enjoy it, especially live, just kind of getting away, and it kind of feels like you're checking out and everybody's just kind of dancing and having a good time, and it kind of gives you that break or that breath of fresh air you were looking for. So kind of just started trying my hand at producing house music, and quickly found out like this is a great way to spend a little bit of time letting out a little bit of creative side and getting that satisfaction of learning, different house drum patterns or things you can do, because the house drum pattern is very basic across the board, but little things you can do to spice it up to make your sound different. Because it's basically just boots and cats and boots and cats. That's kind of the joke they make, or the way to emulate it that they do. But then just learning a little bit about synthesizers and what attack and release and decay and all these different functions on a synthesizer mean. It just interested me. I I don't know. I usually like learning about kind of neat. None of these are niche, but they're niche enough for me to just kind of dive into, and whether that's music production, smart home, 3D printing, PC building, just kind of like learning about some of those types of things and trying my hand at it. And most of the time I end up really liking it, spending too much money and time.
Well, and that's the other, the balancing hobbies and the old work-life balance.
Yeah.
I completely feel you on that, because, I'm guilty of spending a lot of time working on this show or buying, doing the things you got to do between equipment and other stuff to try to keep your sound moving forward. Because, when people listen to the show, I want it to sound good. I want it to sound professional. I don't want people trying to decipher, gargled speech over a bad connection or a bad mic. So I completely feel you on that one. So let's talk a little bit about maybe some industry trends and some more, I guess, a lot of this has been personal insight, but we'll dig into a few more. So, we're constantly moving towards energy efficient stuff. I know we've had so many different regulations change the last several years. We've got refrigerant changing in less than 4 months. How are you seeing a lot of this stuff kind of play out with clients in terms of, how are you going to market with trying to be prepared for refrigerant change and everything else? Because I know it's tough to try to start figuring out when you're really going to be ordering and releasing or booking jobs, which I know you guys have a whole different vernacular than I'm used to. So I'm still learning kind of your terminology.
Yeah.
But, how are you guys right now really kind of helping move towards a different refrigerant change? Because a lot of the numbers you're being asked for right now, we don't have numbers for, 454 R32 equipment, but we're having to quote jobs based on where we think it's going to go. How is that, how's that wreaking havoc, or is it, a positive conversation with clients kind of moving forward right now? Turn up the heat in your kitchen, trade crew, using Cajun Joe's Bayou Spice, the original blend that brings the bold, authentic flavors of the Bayou straight to your table. Perfect for grilling, sauteing, low country boiling, or seasoning any dish, Cajun Joe's adds the perfect kick of heat and spice. Whether it's seafood, chicken, gator, beef, pork, veggies, or more, you'll love how this blend transforms your meals. Ready to take your cooking to the next level? Grab your jar today in the HVAC R&D swag shop. Just visit hvacrnd.com and spice up your life with Cajun Joe's Bayou Spice. And now, back to the show. So, starting to talk about, some industry trends. The industry's moving towards a lot more energy efficient solutions. And, we've got so many different things that are changing with refrigerants and everything else right now. How do you see, this playing out with current clients as you're negotiating, what product is available, what product is coming, but you may not have information about pricing for product that's coming? How is that kind of throwing a monkey wrench into current discussions over really trying to get selections right?
Yeah, I feel like manufacturers have been pretty good about communicating their changes, what that might do pricing wise, et cetera, et cetera. I think some of the kind of challenge is, jobs only move at the speed that they're going to move at. And sometimes we'll do selection. I mean, I had selections from December of last year that just timing wise did get to a point where it's bidding at a point where, that manufacturer may be cutting off their R410, cutoff date, and you may need to be switching it, and all of a sudden you're trying to redesign around R454B or 32, whatever it may be. But I know with energy efficiency trends, I've seen a lot of just energy recovery, whether that's a wheel inside of a unit or an ERV type unit. That is just becoming, it's been a big thing for a bit now. Not breaking news here, but I feel like that the prevalence of that has spiked. I'm pretty used to energy efficiency trends just because when I was in California, it seemed like, they were very, conscious of it, and VRF was a huge thing, and VRF's kind of future's interesting to me. I don't know how to feel about it because there could be potential fire safety changes, even though I don't think it's that flammable. Of the A2Ls are all that flammable, and we've all seen videos.
And I think I think there's been a lot of people that have, these YouTube warriors have scared a lot of people when I really don't. It's really not what it is. Yes, it's flammable. Yes, if you put flame to it, it can burn. And I think, I had a very similar discussion on a show a couple weeks ago, with all the things that they're, putting forward to potentially try to regulate it with sensors and everything else, how big of a leak would you actually truly have to have for it to really, really do the crazy kind of damage they're talking about? I mean, does that even make sense? But, if it can be completely self-extinguishing,
yeah, I mean,
where's the cutoff there?
Yeah, I mean, with like ASHRAE 15 and stuff, you've always really never wanted leaks, just because of the effects on oxygen they can have and stuff. But the flame spread index, I haven't seen enough to be convinced that it's a big dangerous topic in terms of catching fire. Or I've seen videos where they're kind of igniting a live flame to it and it's not catching. So I don't know.
Yep. No, it's got to be like direct to it to get it to burn, if it will burn. But then as soon as you pull the flame, it self-extinguishes. So I really don't know. I think there's been, like I said, there's been a lot of stuff that's made people more scared of it than they probably should be, and then there's probably some people that brush it off more than they should. So I think there's extremes at both ends of that, I'm sure. And with coming from a state like California where you had a lot more stricter kind of advanced codes, what are some steps that you've kept even moving here to really stay informed, to keep your skills sharp as a lot of technology continues to change? Have you got is there any kind of routine you take to just, go through and look at stuff every so often, and talk with reps, or, how do you manage that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm always definitely kind of keeping up with coworkers because you never know what they're hearing, and that's kind of the quickest way to information, in my opinion, is it's just that direct feedback. I think you kind of take that home with you no matter what. You're not going to forget about it, as if you read something on a screen for a brief moment. But I try to stay involved with our local ASHRAE chapter, part of like NCHEA, the North Carolina Healthcare Engineers Association. Just kind of keep up with their events. Honestly, if you open up my YouTube and it shows you kind of my page that's kind of recommended for me when I open a fresh page of YouTube, it's recent football videos and it's recent HVAC videos. I definitely have a passion for the industry I'm in, and always want to feel like I'm progressing in it and working towards knowing more. And like I said, I've always kind of wanted to be the guy to be able to flip the experience level at some point in my career. Like right now, I kind of sit back, listen, and I find ways that I can help and be resourceful and help get my customer to the finish line of a project. But for right now, I listen. And for right now, I'm trying to pick up enough to where one day, whether that's 5 years from now or 20, I'm kind of the guy that's giving out the lessons and has the experience.
Well, and seeing those things kind of change, you talked about how much you appreciate VRF, with different things that could potentially regulate that. Do you see any resurgence in water coming from this, at least for a temporary period of time?
Oh, definitely. Well, there's even like all the heat pump chillers and heat recovery chillers and that the VRF manufacturers are coming out with that are able to make cold water, hot water. Huge advances in that. When the original kind of announcement of the A2L change was kind of going on, and people started worrying about, will that change VRF systems? Some of the thought was, well, they're going to potentially keep refrigerant on the outdoor units and have the indoor fan coils, operate on water and kind of figure out a hybrid VRF water cooled, sort of thing. So I could definitely see other advancements to kind of use the benefits of water and refrigerant in a way that's safe, efficient, and practical going forward. But that is yet to be seen. I think this is still fairly fresh in terms of any advances. I think everybody was just trying to switch over and get that figured out first.
Well, and I think that kind of hits a nail on the head about, a lot of the next big shifts that we're going to see in this industry are kind of the coming together of things that have developed into their own lane, but changes are going to force them together. So I think, finding a way for VRF to kind of find a way to work with water more than it has in the past is a really interesting solution to even consider.
Yeah, I can see it. Multi-Aqua has been out for a while, and they're pretty much all like water-cooled VRF, and a lot of the LG and Samsungs of the world have a water-cooled VRF system already. I think it would have just kind of gotten even more so geared towards the water, especially at any point indoors. But it's interesting. We'll see kind of how that specific niche of the market moves forward.
So another big thing that you have to focus on, and you touched briefly on, doing lunch and learns, which you and I have done a lunch and learn together with an engineer. That was a cool experience to kind of see how you manage that. With client education being key to sales, how do you really work to make sure your clients stay fully informed about benefits and limitations on products as we're changing so fast?
Well, this just as well as I do, that Insight has a great marketing department, and a lot of times I get the reward or the benefit of having that. We'll put together some announcement type pages, or sort of like manufacturers do white papers, and I send those out a lot too, just because I hate to keep circling back to it. I'm not trying to sound like a dumb sales guy that's just barely scraping by. I'm not a true expert in that field. Let me show you a white paper from researchers, or from let me use that as my supporting evidence, and we can talk about it further. So I definitely try to just keep up on. We get a lot of email blasts, so maybe some people would just delete. If it's got an announcement from a manufacturer about a new technology, or I'm all about reading through that and making sure I understand kind of where the industry's headed, or at least what innovations may be out there, so that I can pass that info along to people that are asking specific questions about a certain technology or the other. I'm able to kind of give them some documents that I just read about, or hey, I just watched this video. So I do try to utilize as much resources as I can.
Well, and that's very similar to a conversation I had with Jessica from Global a couple of episodes ago. Is we talked about one of the most important parts of being a salesperson is also trying to have the heart of a teacher, and always being willing to go that extra mile to help educate a customer. There's times that we learn stuff on the fly that we wish we'd known 3 weeks ago or 3 years ago, and then you think back to a conversation you had with somebody, and I've even used things like that to go back to a customer from months before, like, hey, I remember you asked me this question and we couldn't figure out a solution, or we couldn't find an answer, but this just came out today. We may be too late for it from the past, but now we know how to fix it for the future. Perfect.
Yeah, absolutely. Something I would be trying to do if it dawned on me in my head that, that's kind of like what we were just working on. I should absolutely let that guy know, so that next time, you're not really trying to go chase and beg for the last one, but hey, let me show you what we can do next time, now that now that we know this.
So how do you see, or I guess really looking ahead, what's your vision of the future for HVAC applied sales? What do you see, anything in your role changing as we continue to progress in technology? I know there's constantly people saying that, they could teach a monkey to do our jobs. I hear that stuff all the time. Like, oh, you're just a sales guy. But, how do you see yourself kind of continuing to shape your job to where it's relevant as we move forward?
Yeah, I was just going to ask, haven't you seen the news? AI is taking over.
Oh, I know.
Just kidding. No, I mean, I think this job it's a relationship-based job because, I mean, when we work with our mechanical contractors that are bidding these jobs, they have so many things they're focusing on. They would never have the time to truly analyze all the different manufacturers that make similar equipment and truly understand which one's the best for this job and this job, and they rely on sales guys to help educate them. And so I don't really see a world where our job goes away in terms of advancements or kind of where it may shape in the future. I think it's always going to boil down to relationships. I think potentially in the future, I don't know, maybe there's advancements on how a customer can get pricing at the click of a button instead of having to rely on us. But I still feel like that relationship piece will always be there with training and with servicing after the fact and helping be an expert for that piece of equipment.
I think you saying that, being available at the click of a button, on the side of distribution that I've spent the most of my career, I've ran into instances where, there's some of that is taking over a little bit here and there, because when you're looking for just certain items, you can go get an answer at the click of a button. I think part of the difference in, applied sales for you guys is no one's jumping on, Insight.com to price out this,
giant dehumidification unit.
For off this set of plans, you can't just go and find that, in the store for your distributor. And that's not saying that those things are a problem for salespeople. There's a lot of times I'd love for my guys to be able to go and get pricing even quicker than I can get it to them, because that helps them, get a solution faster. But I think there's an element to what we do that just being able to go online and find a price is never going to replace. So, we've covered a lot of stuff tonight. A segment that I've added into the show that's now powered by Bosch Home Comfort, I like to call it Give More in 2024. So as we went over a lot of these different things, looking back, what's one key takeaway that you would really like listeners of the show to remember?
Falcons are going to win the Super Bowl.
So much for Sam saying, make sure to be yourself and listen to your customers.
That certainly was my initial thought. I do think, I mean, there's rapid change right now. I think it almost puts everybody on an even playing field when there's this much amount of change, just because, everybody's going through the learning process again. Obviously the guys with long histories of experience are still at an advantage, but as we have rapid change and growth, everybody's kind of put on an even playing field. Just be yourself, focus on what you can control, and be there for your customers.
What advice would you give someone that's considering a career in the HVAC industry, whether it be in sales or, more hands-on as an apprentice, since you've kind of been able to do both things? What's some advice you would give somebody?
I would say if you are leaning towards being in the field, go to a community college, and a community college specifically that has a HVAC style or air conditioning and heating program. And maybe even go there early and talk to some of the people and figure out, what classes really had the most impact, and start with those before you go find yourself a job, or simultaneously while you find yourself a job. I just know how impactful that was for me, in learning how to get my feet wet.
Yep.
And then I would say if it's in sales, do it. HVAC may not seem sexy on paper compared to potential alternatives that you're kind of like daydreaming about if you're considering all these different career paths. If HVAC sales is on your mind, or HVAC project management, what a great industry this is. What an absolute just gem. And it's a large industry, but it's also such a small industry. I'm still in such close contact with so many people that I met, whether it was through the master's program I mentioned I did the rep for, where that was reps from all across the nation. That's led me to places to stay if I go visit somewhere, or just people to chat with about how their Cleveland Browns are doing. The friendships, the relationships you can make with customers, people you meet along the way. It has as much to offer as any industry in the world, I think.
No, and I think the trades in general are they're a different kind of industry, but they're also industries that aren't going away. Someone is always going to need an HVAC guy. Someone's always going to need a plumber. Someone's always going to need a builder.
Oh yeah.
AI can't replace the service tech that comes and fixes it. Sorry, it's not going to happen. Maybe, way down the line in the future, maybe there's a robot that can do it, but we're ways away from that unless Sam invents it. You never know. But I think it's an extremely rewarding career. The trades are. You meet a ton of good people. We talk about it being a huge industry, but also a small one. I think, the last couple of years, as I've continued to get more involved with AHR, and then, being in the podcast pavilions, which, speaking of which, I'll see you guys in Orlando. If you're coming, I'll be back in the podcast pavilion as I was in Atlanta and Chicago. So I'll see you guys there for that. Make sure to go get registered. Was it February 10th through the 12th, I believe, down in Orlando? So definitely looking forward to AHR, which you'll see more stuff for me about that stuff as we get towards it. But, used to going to AHR was just like, oh man, I'm going to go see all this stuff. But now it's truly become, I go and I see all my friends from all over the country that I see through social media, or that I talk to or do different things with throughout the year. So it's almost like a massive, reunion a lot of times now, which continues to just be, speak volumes for how interesting and interconnected our industry really is.
Yeah.
What would you say is your best piece of advice for both, personal and professional growth?
My advice for the personal side of things: take care of yourself. You're never going to be able to grow or build off of what you got going if you're not just kind of maintaining your physical health and your emotional health, and just making sure that you're kind of happy with what you're doing. Take care of yourself, otherwise you're not really going to grow. But also to know that growth only comes in challenging times. You're not really going to learn from times where everything went smooth and you were happy. Those feel good, but they're not going to make you grow and be able to handle more, like even more in the future. So understand that growth is a matter of facing challenges, but if you're not taking care of yourself, you will never be ready for those challenges. So
and another way you can even say some of that stuff is, the results you're looking for in most cases are in the work you're not doing.
Yeah. Oh God. Yeah. That's a great way to say that.
And I'm sure I'm stealing that from somebody, but it sounded great. So yeah, everybody.
Might have been like Ron
really,
Burgundy or something.
I don't know. That would be a great Ron Burgundy quote, wouldn't it? So I really appreciate your time tonight, Sam. Where can where can listeners connect with you? If there's someone that listens to the show and wants to talk to you about doing business with you, where can people find you? Are you on LinkedIn? Are you on Instagram? Where can people connect with you, Sam?
Not too big on like the Instagram, but definitely please reach out to me on LinkedIn if you enjoyed the show or anything. Sam Braddock, Braddock, and at the moment I have a very non-traditional professional sales engineer type post or a picture, not wearing a suit and smiling in front of a backdrop. I'm a guy in a Grogu shirt holding up a big white sign that says HVAC. This is probably the best suggestion I've had the whole podcast. Go listen to Harry Mack. He is a freestyle rapper that takes random suggestions from people out on the street or what have you and turns it into a rap. I went to one of his kind of like live show experiences, and it's how passionate I am about my career. Everybody got a poster board and a big Sharpie, and we had to choose a topic or noun or something for him to rap about. And he kind of went through all the audience's suggestions throughout the night, and I wanted him to rap about HVAC, so you are welcome for the representation out there in the real world.
I love it. Well, Sam, thank you for taking some time to speak with me and the trade crew. Folks, if you're not following the show online, please make sure to go follow me on Instagram and TikTok at hvac.rnd, also as the HVAC R&D podcast on LinkedIn, Trade Hounds, and Facebook. Thank you for taking time to listen to the show on your favorite platform. Please follow the show, like and rate the show, leave me a review, share me with your trade crew. Don't forget to check out hvacrnd.com and go to the swag shop. If you want to work with me, you know how to do that. So everybody, I hope you have a great week. I'll catch you soon. Peace.